and welcome to a new episode at Mindset Mastery. I'm your host, Ahmed Assaf, and today we have an amazing guest, Mike Len Evans. How are you today, Mike?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you.
I
Yes.
hope I said your last name right.
Yes, Lane Evans. It's my married name, so I'm still getting used to saying it myself.
Oh, that's nice. So today we're going to dive through your journey so far, and as every one of us enjoyed that self-discovery about himself and discovering the infinite potential within us. If you could start to tell us a little bit about your journey so far, and that gets you to the coaching.
Yeah, so I started life, I suppose, as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I started doing it when I was 8, uh, and it was very much a part of my identity, I suppose. I saw myself as an actor. That was everything I knew about myself. Um, and then in 2016. I had, well, it was actually closer to 18 months, a period of my life where I wasn't able to kind of match the preparation, the practice I'd been doing with the output. And every time I would leave a meeting or a casting, I
Mm-hmm.
would feel like my real self was coming back. But when I was in the room, I felt like I was only able to give 60% of myself. This ceiling was, or this blocker was stopping me from being myself in that room and doing my best, really. And I started to explore what was happening. It was a few things. I was able at the time to kind of do some research, and it turns out there was a study done into this, and 83% of people in the UK, it's where I'm based, 83% of people in the UK reported something similar. This lack of ability to just kind of achieve what you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started this kind of process of sort of change in my mind, realizing these things. I started to work more in communication. I was training, I was coaching people. And then in 2018, I did a play that was a true story. And it was quite a horrible, horrible true story. And they brought therapists and counselors in as part of the process to make sure that we were all okay. And I started to question for myself, well, this isn't like light entertainment. It's not funny. It's not kind of a drama. It's real. And what am I doing here? And what I realized was that what was most important for me with my acting career, the things that mattered the most was always putting stuff out there that started conversation and could maybe even bring about change. So there are some really powerful plays or TV shows or movies that have brought the beginnings, at least, of change. And I realized that that part, that conversation, that change was more important to me than the actual acting. And so I started to do more in communications. I was working as a public speaking coach, helping people to get on stage and do TED Talks. And I was still acting alongside it. And then 2020 came, COVID. And in the UK, we were in a lockdown for 4 or 5 months. And although I was very lucky, I had lots of coaching work and lots of acting work. It really, and I know this is true for a lot of people, it really made me question like, what my purpose was and what I wanted my purpose to be. And it was kind of the final changes to me stopping acting. By the beginning of 2021, I'd stopped acting completely. And then I actually started doing full coaching training with the International Coaching Federation. So I'm a qualified life coach, as well as a careers coach and a business coach. And so I wanted to take away from just using my skills as an actor in public speaking coaching and offer a lot more. But I guess your question of those steps, those mindset shifts, sorry,
Yes,
tongue twister, that I can see all of these moments all the way from sort of 2016 right through to 2021.
that's really amazing. And as an actor, they act as if, and I'm sure that you're acting as if in that scenes that you're working on. So how being an actor helped you through your journey to get wherever you are, and especially altering your self-image because with every goal you cannot overperform your self-image. So how that help you with that, with changing or altering your self-image?
I think I've never been asked that question before. It's a really great question. I think that I'll tell you a quick story to give an example of
Yeah.
this. So when my wife and I first met, her birthday is on the 28th of December. And she said to me, all my life, my birthdays have been bad because it's between like so many religious holidays. It's just before the new year. People are with their family, with their friends, and people don't usually spend it with me. So I decided to make a big deal of her birthday, and I would organize multiple surprises. And this went on for years. And one of the years, the second or the third year, I'd had to tell quite a few small lies to get us to this point of big surprise. So when we stood in this restaurant in front of people saying surprise, she looked at me and she went off to see everybody. And when I came back together with her, I started to apologize for the lies and to explain. Now, I think it was the second or the third year we were together. And she said, no, I get it. It's like acting. It's you're telling the truth within that believed reality. And so it was like for non-actors, that's kind of it, right? It was a mind-blowing moment for me. I was still an actor. Here is a person who is not an actor, and she just gets me. Because you, as an actor, it's not about lying that you're portraying, and then you live that reality. Not all the time. I was not a method actor. I wasn't living it for 6 months. But when you go to the theater or when you go in front of the camera, you
Mm-hmm.
live that reality as that person for that short period of time. And then there are lots of techniques that we use to kind of then leave that character and be able to go home to your family and be yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yes, I actually do think that uh, being lots of different people or portraying lots of different people and understanding those mindsets really allowed me to start to explore, okay, what is my changing mindset, my changing way of being?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's definitely not just the identity of being an actor that I thought it was for most of my life.
Yeah. Most probably also changing the self-image is asking yourself those questions. It's your inner voice inside of you. Um, one example, like how I think if I'm at that, achieving that goal. If I'm setting a goal, so altering that image, because you'll not outperform your image. You have to shift that image until so you can achieve and become that person who can achieve that goal. So you could ask yourself how I think if I already achieved that goal, or how I feel once I'm at that goal,
Yeah.
and would be I acting as if I'm achieving that goal. And this would be a great help to be in the vibration of that goal and change your frequency just once you are somehow down, because the success, it's not a straight line going up, it's like
Yeah.
a roller coaster, you know that. So this would be a great support to keep us motivated.
It,
Yeah.
no, I just wanted to share a story. So when part of my change was I actually had some life coaching or some personal coaching myself. I went to a coach,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that she gave me as a tool in the process was I was here and I wanted to get to here, the other side of the river, if you will. But she called it no man's land because for me, it wasn't about being in water where I was maybe going to drown. It was just piece of land. But in order to successfully get to the other side, I needed to have certain other things in place. So where I am now, running my business, being a full-time communication coach, that was the other side for me. But as an actor, there were lots of things that left me so busy for 12 hours or 14 hours a day. I was too tired to be working on building that business.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to build some small, temporary other things, working with maybe other coaching companies or other training companies that would allow me to start to leave the training behind. But what you just described is perfect, actually, because when I started to put those other companies in place, I was already seeing myself at that point. I was helping myself grow and develop as a coach and as a trainer by being with these other companies. and starting to leave those other parts of my life behind and move towards
Yeah.
where I wanted to be.
You,
And that
you,
image, it's so powerful for me, that
you
image.
didn't wait. You start preparing. And
Straight
that's
away.
what we ask everyone is start preparing step by step. Even that's consistency, that small steps will lead you to
Yeah.
wherever you are. I just here want to ask about the freedom. And I'm sure that one of the things that made you move from wherever you are is your purpose and you're looking for freedom. So how could you define freedom from your perspective? Because everyone have his own different definition to freedom.
Yeah. Again, it's another huge question there. I think now I would define my freedom as my kind of work-life balance. So I listen to, do you know Daniel Priestley?
Hmm.
Daniel Priestley. I listened to Daniel Priestley on a podcast. For those who don't know him, he's run 10 hugely successful businesses, and um, he was talking about how he doesn't believe in work-life balance. And I think he's great in lots of ways. I just disagree with him on that point because his point was if you love your work so much, then you don't need work-life balance because it is just life balance. Now, I like the sentiment, but let me explain. Like my job as a coach, I love my job. I love the freedom that I have to, if I decide I want to go to the gym and actually start work at 11 a.m., that's okay. If I don't have clients booked in, I pre-plan it. I can start at 11 a.m. I can work till 8 p.m. I work globally with 6 continents. And so I do work lots of different times. And when I started my business, I didn't have that much freedom because I was working 18-hour days because I was taking every client I could across multiple time zones. So the step into it, I was doing it full time, but it wasn't necessarily the freedom immediately that I wanted. And yet there was so much that I enjoyed along the way. However, I got married last year and I don't want to be working
Congratulations.
18-hour days. Thank you. I love my job and I feel excited to wake up in the morning and go to my job. I also feel excited to finish my job and go and hang out with my wife. So that for me, I do think there's a difference between work-life balance. And for me, that is that freedom to be able to take those times. Also, if me and my wife want to take a 2-hour lunch together to maybe go to an appointment or to go and see something for the house, we can do that if we've planned it in advance. Obviously, if I have clients, I can't do it. But for me, running my own business, it allows those kind of freedoms. And when I was an actor, I was used to that kind of freelance lifestyle. So I think for me, it's really important to have that.
Yeah, so it's somehow the financial freedom and the time freedom. And
Yeah.
if I could add one thing, as being yourself is more enjoying love. That's why one of the main things I was thinking about is I thought at the beginning, like 15 years ago, it's all about financial freedom. And once I got that financial freedom, then I thought, oh, it's maybe about the time freedom. Then I achieved time freedom. And then what's next? There
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
something. So I went to the point that the real definition from my perspective is just being you, having this amazing life balance in your life and doing something that you really love. That's the highest level of freedom.
Yeah, and I think for me it's really important to just say to those people listening to the podcast that if you don't feel that you have those three things I just said, that's okay too.
Yeah,
Like I think like it doesn't mean that you have to kind of you burn your bridges and become unemployed and leap towards it. But taking a small step today, as soon as you finish listening to the podcast, that is you going on that journey towards that freedom. And whilst I have lots of freedom, I'm sure there are times where I have more and times where I have less. It's the summer, so if it
yeah,
depends when you're listening to this podcast, but we're recording this in early August. And July and August, I've had much more freedom around my business than I know. October and November for me are so busy that I get to be myself, I get to enjoy it. I maybe have a little bit more less of that time freedom. So you can't necessarily have all three in equal
yeah,
measure all of the time. As a coach, I get to be myself, but also sometimes people don't care who I am. They need somebody to help them through their
exactly.
process. So there are, yeah, I think
Yeah,
all
as
three.
you mentioned, you talk about really an amazing important point. As I said it just in in 3 sentences those 3 points about the
Yeah.
freedom, but there's millions of steps there went in between,
Yeah.
and millions of discipline and millions of decisions and raising my standards and shifting my self-image. It took me like 15 years. I'm not saying so. It's not about having your own business, or even you could have freedom even through your career. So the main thing is just make a decision, doing something different toward something you really love, and move from your comfort zone. That's it. That comfort zone makes us just locked, just limited. We don't know what to do next, or stuck somehow. So maybe I underestimate, but it needs discipline through all their journey. Make decision with discipline, with the right attitude, and altering your self-image. That what you talk about previously, where those 5 powers will lead you to make or prevent you from drifting towards your goal, because it will not happen overnight. It will not happen overnight. And if we could talk about the skill sets that a person should enhance and develop, and it would be uh, communication. And you're an expert in communication because from your background in being an actor and then being in a coach. So could you tell us how much the effectiveness, and you worked with the military as a consultant with the military,
Yes.
British military. So could you tell us about that experience and how that helped you in acting and even in coaching now?
So I grew up in quite a military town. And what I've discovered outside of my work with the military, I've worked with them. So I didn't, when I was growing up, I wanted to either be in the military or be an actor. Every time I left college and walked to town, you would walk past the Army Recruitment Center.
Mhm.
And I played rugby with a lot of guys that went on to join the military. And so I always felt quite guilty that I didn't do it. And I went to theatre school instead, quite different. And so when I had the opportunity to go back as a consultant and do some training, just that small amount of being in that environment and with those people was something that I really enjoyed. And what how I've always described the communication and in military is it's almost like a parallel universe. It's very, very close. So there are slight different ways of speaking, different ways of communicating, certain types of people that go into the multiple roles. Because anyone who's listening, like my wife used to just think it was just, soldiers who fight. And there's so many roles in any military in the world that bring real value to the country that you live in. And there are differences. There are loads of similarities, but there are differences to the corporate world or, the kind of the startup world, maybe. And I guess it was the beginnings for me of learning about the importance of communication across cultures. So it's something that we do now at Forefront. We talk about culture a lot because it's the biggest challenge I've ever gotten from all of my clients. So I might be speaking to somebody, a group of people based in Nigeria, and they're saying, this is amazing what you're teaching us about American investors. But what about when we're speaking with Nigerian investors? Is it the same? And, is it the same if we speak with British investors? And so that challenge has meant that we need to take a lot more data, do a lot more study into how to communicate across cultures. And I think the work I did with the military was almost it wasn't the beginning of me learning that. It was a huge time in my life of learning. Okay, I tried communicating in this way and I didn't get what I wanted. I'll try communicating in this way. And that's why it really helped me with the issues I was having as an actor in 2016, because I realized that I was communicating as an actor with the other people in the room, with the directors and everything. And so I was able to use a sort of a parallel universe, if you will, of being with the military to test out different ways of communicating and see what was successful and what was not successful.
So
So yeah, I think it's hugely important.
if you could give us like just 3 practical or a framework of how could we enhance our communication, because it's the key for your business, for your career, for anything in your life, even with your family, with your wife.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so it's what the first tip I'm going to give is now quite funny because you just said with your wife, and I do still think it is really important. So the first one is preparation. So easy for me to say, to prepare or to like preparation. And that's funny if you're thinking about like going into a conversation with your wife, what do I need to prepare for? But also sometimes I learned a stat about a year ago that men are sort of a hormonal cycle. A lot of men get a testosterone spike every 15 minutes. 15, 1 5. And I learned this from a female scientist who specializes in hormone cycles. And she said there's a joke amongst women in that industry, which is if your husband is angry, give him 15 minutes.
Okay.
Because so many people calm down after 15 minutes, so many men, sorry, calm down. And so actually that preparation in a relationship, maybe something has upset me or annoyed me, but actually my wife doesn't just need to give me 15 minutes. I need to learn. Actually, let me talk to her about this in 10, 15 minutes because I know that things will go much better. I'm not coming in with this high level of kind of energy. And then when it comes to going into a business meeting, when it goes into meeting with an investor, when it goes into just maybe you're in a business already and speaking to your bosses or to your colleagues, you don't need to spend hours preparing, spend a few minutes preparing. And so, even if you don't have time to think about what you want to say, you can prepare by just taking a few moments, a few seconds to get your head into that space. So, the quickest exercise that I can give to people, and this is scientifically proven, and it sounds silly, just to take 3 breaths. So in through your nose and out through your mouth 3 times. We know that 3 or more breaths will bring our heart rate down and it will lower our cortisol levels or our stress levels. So just taking that time before you go into a call, into a meeting, into a conversation with your wife, if you're annoyed about
Amazing.
something, that's huge. The second one for me is curiosity. And when I say the second, if I'm honest, for me, this is the most important one. It's my life goal is just to continue to be curious about myself, to be curious about people that I think I know, like my wife, my family, like people that I've known for a long time. And you think, I know what they're like. We all change, we all go through so many things. And so being curious, wanting to asking really great questions. Um, and I think the other thing, a big thing in communication is don't forget yourself because I think a lot of times we are thinking about, well, what does this other person need? And sometimes we forget to consider our own needs. And so what I mean by that is I work with a lot of startups and a lot of startups and they need $2 million in investment. And so if an investor says, yeah, I'll give that to you, they take that investment without thinking, is this an investor that I like, that I respect, that I want to spend the next 8 years of my life working with? So many of these questions. And so I think consider what you want out of those situations before you go into them.
Amazing. That's really brilliant. And how would emotions, it's essential once to have those neutral emotions before you go any communication or any conversation.
Yeah,
Because if you go with having like a positive or even negative, it will affect your meeting.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's better to have that neutral emotions and be prepared, as you said. And the last point you talk about looking for the need, but don't you think it's lack limitation, especially if you're a startup or like it's instead of talking about the need, or why don't we talk about the want and the win-win situation?
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand the question. I think for me it's the same. What you want and what you need don't have
Hmm.
to be too far apart from each other.
Hmm.
Like the win-win, I completely agree with that. I
Amazing.
think making sure that you can win and they can win is a
Yeah,
great it's like anything. You know, your example of talking with your wife. You know, like if we're just talking about like I really want to go out for dinner tonight, she really wants to stay in and eat food.
Hmm.
We can compromise with maybe a takeaway is the compromise, but also actually just understanding that what is the reason for her wanting to eat at home this evening and not go out. Because actually, after talking about it for a few minutes, I might change my mindset. I might think, I agree with all of those things. I just didn't consider them beforehand. So the win-win is not necessarily just getting the things that you went in with in the first place, but understanding like what are the core things that matter to you so that we can evolve or change or adapt to the situation we're in.
Amazing. Now I have a great question for you. If we talk about the confidence and authentic confidence, so how could I just being building that charisma or that presence, whatever I'm sitting in that communication or that conversation, how could we give like some insights or some practical instructions or something to help our audience with that?
I think very quickly, again, preparation is really important. I think the biggest factor I see in people's lack of confidence is um, not preparing enough. And so I can give you an example. When I was an actor,
Hmm.
I used to think that I had done lots of preparation for a meeting because I had spent 2 hours or 2 days or 2 weeks preparing for this meeting. Actually, what I mean is not just preparation for each meeting, but preparation for for your life. So I did a course as an actor. So as an actor, you have to do self-tapes. So it's just an audition that you have to film for yourself. You have to set up the camera and the lights and the microphones. Then you have to be your own director, your own judge. Was that a good version? Then you have to edit it. Then you have to send it. It's not what most actors signed up to do. Now, not most, some actors will moan about that and not like it. Some actors will do some more practice. There are some courses out there where you do 30 self-tapes in 30 days. And what that did for me was it completely changed my ability to learn scripts quickly. So when I meet with founders, maybe you're preparing for a pitch to an investor.
Hmm.
The easiest thing to say is, okay, it's a 3-minute pitch. We need it prepared in 6 weeks' time. Practice for that. Then when it's finished, you can forget about it and get back to your business. And I think that is the mistake. Use every time you prepare for a pitch, a presentation, that is practice. Even if it goes badly, learn from those mistakes. Also, if you can, and I know it sounds crazy to small startups, we don't have time for this. Build those practices in when you don't even have something to prepare for. Because the faster you get at being able to write something and make a deck and put it out there, the more you will build up your confidence in yourself. Um, it's that theory that if you do 10,000 hours on anything, you are an expert. And so if you feel unconfident about presenting, put your 10,000 hours in. Now, if we're talking about not presenting and just having a conversation with people one-on-one, then I would say if we go back to the curiosity that I said before, don't just wait for someone to finish speaking and then ask the next question that you already had written down. Listen to what they're saying. And the final few words that really matter to them that they just finished talking about, ask about that. Follow on from what they've been talking about. Any coach who's watching this is going, well, that's just coaching, basics, coaching basics, which it is. A lot coaches are curious people, and that's why they kind of go into that. So they're those main things that get that practice in and continue to listen and be curious and ask questions because you just want to hear the answers.
Amazing. And here, talking about the mentorship and coaching, and how essential having a mentor in your life or a coach. So to develop your personal. So how could you tell from your perspective and from your experience, coaching and mentoring startups or business owners or decision makers or executives, how did that impact their life and change their life?
I think One of the issues that we faced as a company is that over the last 12 months, some big companies in the world have had to make redundancies. They've had to kind of lower budgets. And what we see statistically throughout time is when budgets get lowered, training, coaching are some of the first things
Number
to
one.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah.
yeah. Now, I understand why, because it doesn't seem like they affect the business. And I won't name them, but there is a huge corporate company in the world that we all know that we were speaking with about coming on board, and they said, unfortunately, we need to put a hold on this. We need to wait because now we have to prove ROI on everything. We have to prove return on investment on everything. Well, of course, coaching, it's not like I give you this thing and then you have a new notebook to write on even. It's not, it's some of those skills evolve or kind of it's like planting a seed that will continue to grow for weeks, months, years. I've no doubt there are some things that I have discovered in myself or explored in myself in coaching that are still yet to kind of happen. So I think go to coaching knowing that you will, everybody will get benefit from it. Go to coaching with an open mind about what that benefit looks like, because it may not be the standard, I pay for this, I get this, that you've been so used to in transactions throughout your life. You're going to work on yourself. And the biggest thing I can say about coaching is we will ask you questions that you will never ask yourself. And the answers are inside you. You just need somebody else to ask you those questions. And so by going to coaching, you are working on yourself and growing and developing. And it is a privilege. I will say this, it's not free. That you can occasionally find some free coaching out there. If anyone is interested, you can go and find like anyone who's training to be a coach with the ICF, the International Coaching Federation.
Mhm.
Usually the coaches in training need to do some coaching. And so there is small pockets of free coaching out there. If you really are not able to afford it, what I would say is that even if you go do 2 sessions and leave it for 6 months or for a year and come back for 2 sessions, you're continuing that work on yourself. It's like going to the gym. It's not going to be bad for you. You're continuing to get fitter. And that's how I feel about coaching.
Amazing. So, what would be your advice, or how could you just guide them to find the best coach or a mentor or selecting them?
Yeah. First of all, just ask, just just write down 3 to 5 things that you think is really important for you in a coach. So bear in mind, you're going to probably spend 60 minutes with this person, maybe once every week or once every 2 weeks for a
Hmm.
period of time. And it's almost guaranteed that they will ask you some really deep questions, maybe deeper than your partner has asked you, maybe deeper than your parents have asked you, maybe not. If you're going to meet with somebody that's going to ask you those types of questions about yourself, what are the factors that are important to you? So, for example, some of them, it will be gender. Some of them, it will be culture. Some of them, it will be whether the person lives nearby and I can go to see them in person, or whether we do it over Zoom. So I'd say those are 3 quite common things that I come across. It might be a lot of other things that are important to you. So write that 3 to 5 list, and then you will save a lot of time when you start searching. From there, if you go to the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, you can find lists of coaches that, for instance, if you're in Dubai and you want to coach in Dubai, that's a great starting point. That's going to shorten the list of every coach in the world down to Dubai. Then if you want it to be female, then you can shorten it again. And so from there are lots of kind of things that you can do doing that. Of course, you can look at Google, you can look at LinkedIn. I personally don't recommend social media for ways to find a coach, even though we do it on ours, because social media is always showing the best of life. And so even as a communication company, nothing we put on social media is a lie. It's always true. It's always going to be these amazing things. And there are lots of moments that we have with clients that are hard and challenging and tough. And it's not um, morally okay for us to be sharing those things. I do think it's important to talk about the struggle that you will go through. We can't share, like if we did a coaching session, Ahmed, I can't share those moments where it was really tough for you to a public audience. That would be
Exactly.
unfair. And so for those reasons you won't see it on social media. They will come, and so social media is maybe not the best way to go and find the person you've got that right fit for.
Hmm.
You might
Hmm.
find someone you really admire and you like. Maybe you find 5 people through social media, and then the best thing is meet with them all, have calls with them, and then you will understand if you have a good fit with that person.
Amazing. And the most important also I would love to add is find someone, a coach that have results in his life and being authentic and honest with himself first. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you'll make great results with him. So thank you, Mike, for this amazing podcast. And how could you just tell our audience how they can contact you?
So we're forefront-coaching.com. So the dash forefront-coaching.com. We are, as I just said, on LinkedIn. So you can find Forefront Coaching and you can also find me, Mike Lane Evans. We have not been very good on social media since we launched 18 months ago. And we have a new marketing and sales team. And so what's more important is that we will be putting out lots of content for free. There will be videos and tips and advice. And so please come follow us on those pages on LinkedIn, because even if you can't afford it or it's not accessible or you're mentally not ready for coaching, there are some small steps that you can do along the way.
Thank you, Mike. Wish you all the success and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.